May 17th of this year marked the 70th anniversary of Brown versus the Board of Education of Topeka, Kansas. Research released earlier this year by Sean Reardon of Stanford University and Ann Owens of the University of Southern California found that students in the nation's large school districts have become much more isolated racially and economically in recent years. So my question is, has Brown failed us?
Welcome back to our channel. I'm Haas.
I'm Cece.
Today we got a hot topic for you. Welcome back to our channel, where you can get your daily dose of pop culture, social, political, and trending topics. Today, we're doing a deep dive into the unintended consequences of Brown versus the Board of Education. We wanted to be as thorough as possible without weighing you down with a super long video, so we decided to divide this video into a two-part series. Today, in part one, our focus will be on the decimation of the careers of highly qualified and credentialed Black teachers and principals as a result of Brown, and discuss some of the consequences of it. As you know, Brown versus the Board of Education of Topeka, Kansas was the 1954 landmark Supreme Court decision that declared separate but equal education unconstitutional in the United States. However, the case was not specifically to let Black children sit next to white children. It was really about equal access to resources. Black schools were grossly underfunded and didn't have access to high-quality textbooks, science labs, or quality facilities and resources that the white schools had.
Now, what Brown versus the Board of Education intended to do was to achieve racial equality in the classroom. But that did not come without some unintended consequences. And there's a prevailing argument that the dismissal of Black teachers and administrators started the decline in education quality for many Black children. Dr. Kamau Bob is the Senior Director of the Constellation Center for Equity in Computing at Georgia Tech in Atlanta, Georgia. And he points this issue out in a recent interview with Rose Scott on her program, A Closer Look.
It's almost analogous to the Negro Leagues. The integration of baseball, of the Major League Baseball, destroyed the Negro Leagues. Mm-hmm. And as you just saw recently, when they tried to reincorporate the records, all the records are coming from the Negro Leagues. Mm-hmm. So they had the community within the segregated Black schools where teachers were committed, they were excellent, they lived among the people, they understood the realities that we were living with and dealing with in those days. And all of those people are gone. And so what we're left with is schools that are kind of vacant of what they had. Their most valued resources were the teachers. And so now we're stuck with what we had.
In most cases, the Black students were relocated to the white schools, which meant the Black schools were closed. And as a result, many of the Black educators were dismissed. Very few of them made the move to the schools with the kids.
Wow. So author Leslie Fenwick also further explores the dismissal of Black educators as a result of the Brown decision in her book, Jim Crow's Pink Slip, The Untold Story of Black Principal and Teacher Leadership. And one such consequence is the displacement of these Black educators and how it had an economic effect on the Black community. So with the integration, there were now more students in the previously white school because the Black children were relocated to those schools, of course. So naturally, there's more of a need for more teachers. But since white parents did not want Black people teaching their children, rather than hire these Black teachers and principals from the Black school, there were all these loopholes created for whites to be able to get teacher positions without certifications. And as a result, the careers of a generation of highly qualified and credentialed Black teachers and principals were decimated. And this led to the loss of economic power because they were not hired into this newly integrated system, and many were either just completely out of work, or they had to find jobs that paid much lower wages. And this loss of 100,000 Black principals and teachers was the equivalent transfer of about $2.2 billion in today's money.
Eileen Welch, a former teacher, also says the Brown ruling was definitely needed, but agrees with Fenwick's take on the high caliber that Black educators brought to the public education.
I know from Durham public schools, where I grew up after Brown, we might have not had the newest textbooks, but our teachers were better than the white teachers.
Why do you say that?
Well, they couldn't get jobs other places, so we had PhDs who were teaching us in high school and elementary school because this is the best jobs they could get if they were in academia. They could teach in college, they could teach at HBCUs then.
In 2022, Leslie Fenwick was interviewed by Michelle Martin on the NPR show All Things Considered, where she addressed what this meant for the students. And here's an excerpt of what she had to say.
This then means that the newly integrated system has been orchestrated to be a white space, a white controlled space, where the levers of leadership, the levers of teaching, the levers of what the curriculum will include, the levels of funding are primarily controlled, almost exclusively controlled by white hands. And so students, what they experience then and now is a curriculum that is almost exclusively white in authorship, in imagery, and content.
Mrs. Fenwick goes on to say, we're still living with this history. This history is not dead. It has inflicted traumas that we still feel today in the form of the loss of this high caliber principal and teacher workforce that was more credentialed than the educators who replaced him. It also led to the disintegration of Black authority in every area of public education. As previously mentioned, there were economic trauma. However, the most severe trauma was inflicted to Black students who are now in schools that were hostile to their intellectual and social development. So these are hostilities and traumas that we still live with today.
And this is why books like Jim Crow, Pink Slip, and Researchers are so important. When people look at Brown versus the Board of Education, they see it as a success. And in a way it was, but a lot of what this book does is pokes at the idea, and it shows us what we actually lost as a result of integration. And does that mean that we throw out Brown versus the Board of Education? Of course not. But it shines a light on the fact that racial equality in name or fact is one thing, but in practice it's quite another.
Wow. Well, with that said, we're going to leave with the words of Mrs. Fenwick.
I do think that there's a way out, and the way out is threefold. One, let's acknowledge this history and begin to frame the efforts to diversify the nation's educator workforce, mindful of this history. The second way out is to better fund those institutions that have been strong engines for the production of teachers of color. And third, I think we need to message what continues to show up in polls of American parents with school-age children. And that is that they value a diverse teaching force, that they believe in an integrated school system. And I don't think that message is heard enough, that American parents of school-age children value integrated schools and they believe in a diverse educator workforce.
Just to remind you guys, there will be a second part of this video dropping in a couple of days, so please be sure to keep a lookout for it. And thank you for sticking around to the end. We really appreciate your support. Don't forget to like, comment, and share this video.
Also, remember to smash that notification bell so you can know each and every time we upload a new video. Until next time, peace.